This is the Meadow Camp section of the Deschutes. We're taking out at Farewell Bend Park in Bend, putting in at River Rim Park. Right below the put-in, you got a rapid called Playtime. People like to do stern squirts in this one or tricks on some of the waves in here. Just navigating the rapid is pretty straightforward. It's not one of the harder rapids on the run, at least. At lower water, this is about 13 inches. There's some holes that start to form in here. You can boof them or punch them if you want to, as long as you're assertive about it, or you can just kind of weave around them. I guess the crux of the rapid is just a little below here. There's a spot where, at lower flows at least, I like to get to the right. There's a shallow rock hiding out under here, coming up right there. So I like to be just left of that rock and then kind of like weave my way through those waves there. I feel like that's pretty fun, but you can run it other ways too if you want to. At higher water, there aren't nearly as many holes. This is 25.5 inches. It feels a bit more open at this level, like just kind of some big waves and less things sort of restricting where you might want to go. That move at the bottom, you can still run it on the right side if you want to, but I go left a lot more often at these higher flows. It's coming up right here, and I just like that's just a big breaking wave right there. So I mean, you can boof it at lower flows, but at higher flows, it feels a lot easier to just punch right through it. Below Playtime, there's this hole, and I feel like several years ago I had a really nice surf in this hole. I don't remember what the water level was, but I felt like there was a really good spin spot, I think on the river right-hand side. I've tried to go in here several times this year though, and I feel like I've just gotten locked into a side surf and it hasn't been that fun, so I'm not sure if I'm misremembering which hole I was surfing in, or if I just haven't found the right water level, I don't know. Below Playtime, there are a few little boofs that I like, and then there's a rapid called Dammit. You'll see a dam on the right-hand side of the river. There's a horizon line in the middle, and you just want to charge right at it and get a good right boof stroke. I feel like you have some margin of error with this one, where your boat placement doesn't need to be perfect. You can really build up a head of steam going into it because the lead-in's pretty easy, but it is fast and shallow after the boof, so you don't want to flip over in there. That is one thing about this river, is that the best rapids are both fast moving and shallow, so people getting flipped over in here tend to take some rock shots. Right after Dammit, there's a rapid called the Pipe. It almost feels like the same rapid. Like you can eddy out on the left in between them, but if you don't, you're just going straight into the pipe. I drive pretty hard right into that pile of water coming out of the pipe there. This is 13 inches. You don't have to drive that hard at this flow, but as the water gets higher, it becomes really important to have some pretty hard right-hand angle, and I really try to drive like through that pile of water, landing on the wave behind it. If you aren't assertive enough with that move, you can get kicked off to the left like this. If you're ready for it, it's not too bad, but there's this eddy down at the bottom here. You see there's some wood in there. Looks like there's a sieve down there too. If you're ready, you can just ride off the pillow around the rock like that, but I've seen people get flipped over by that move before, so it's something to look out for. After the pipe, there's some unnamed stuff for a little while. You'll see this tube on River Right, and on the backside of that tube, there's a foot gauge that's a more accurate reading for the Meadow Camp water level than the online Benham gauge. There's a lot of water gets pulled for irrigation between Benham Falls and Meadow Camp. So if the online gauge says 1600, it's probably significantly less than 1600 in Meadow Camp. But it's usually pretty consistent how much water is in Meadow Camp, so the online gauge is pretty useful. The one time I've noticed that there's some variation is when they're either just raising the water level or just dropping the water level. It seems like you can get higher flows than you'd expect when they're doing that. I think because they will turn the irrigation off first and then drop the water, or they will raise the water first and then turn the irrigation on. So you get a little bit more water when it's in that intermediate zone there. Next up is Amazing. There's an underwater tree at the top of this one right now that you have to slide over, and then you're just staying in the main flow. It's a fast-moving, ledgy rapid, but you're just kind of keeping your boat pointed downstream and keeping some momentum. The easier line is to just stay right of everything, where the main current is going. It feels like there should be a really great boof hiding somewhere in this rapid, but if it's there, I haven't found it yet. At low water, I really don't enjoy this rapid at all. Here it is at 13 inches. This is about as low as I've run it, and mostly because of this rapid, I didn't really want to do too many laps at this level or run it any lower. There's some other places that are grindy when the water's low. I feel like Mario Land, you're scraping rocks at any level, and some of the in-between stuff, it felt like I was hitting more rocks at low flows, but most of the other rapids stayed pretty fun as the water got lower, but this one did not. Especially like right in here, it just kind of felt like I was hitting a bunch of speed bumps, and yeah, I just felt abusive on the boat. Even at 14.5 inches, it felt a lot better. Like I would gladly do lap after lap at 14.5 inches, but 13 inches, maybe a couple if I'm desperate. There's a left line in this rapid as well. It's a little more challenging. I don't know if there's a lower limit on this one. I didn't even know about it until it was maybe 1600. So yeah, I don't know if there's a lower limit for this line, but you kind of go into this slot on the left here. It's pretty tricky to, like, you want to get a boof in there, but it feels like if you're far enough to the right that you can get a good boof stroke in, you kind of make a lot of contact with that rock on the right there. But if you're lined up with the slot so that you don't touch either rock, there's no place to put your paddle for a boof stroke. This is about as good as I've ever managed to get it, but yeah, it's fun because it's like a challenge to try to get it right, but it doesn't, I never feel like I'm getting a really great boof off of here unless I'm landing on rocks. After Amazing, there are a couple easy moves, and then you're coming into Mario Land. You'll see this giant log jam on the right at the top of the rapid, and once you get around that log jam, there's two different routes you can take through Mario Land. You can either head over to the left there, or you can kind of cut across here to the right. Either line is scrapey. Mario Land is more sort of a maze through rocks than it is, a fun, exciting, fast-moving rapid. I think at lower water you have to take the left line. I didn't see anybody running it until it got up around maybe 1600 CFS. And people were saying that it had kind of closed off over there. I remember we used to run it on the right at all levels, but that was years ago. I think the wood situation has changed. But anyway, you kind of cut around this island here. It's a little bit scrapey in here, and then you cut through here, and the scrapey spot is right up ahead there. Yeah, you kind of want to get your boat lined up going through that slot, but you bump over rocks no matter what. 13 inches, it's the exact same line, but even scrapier. Then you kind of come out into this channel here, and that's where the right line and the left line meet up. At higher flows, I've found that the right line is a little bit less scrapey than the left line. Like that one spot in the left line is very scrapey no matter what. And the right line, I've found that you can get by with only minor scraping of your boat over rocks. Either line you pick, you kind of want to go slow and keep your eyes on what's coming up and pick your way through it as best you can. And neither line is great. I don't really like this rapid all that much. I kind of almost. It's sort of interesting to maze your way through the rocks. If you do it well, you feel good. So I guess that's one thing I like about it. I think this is the spot that might close out as the water gets lower with that piece of wood there. I'm not sure. I don't remember what it was like when we used to run it over there all the time. I just, people told me that because of some wood you can't run it at low water anymore, and I think that's probably the wood they're talking about. It's a little ways between Mario Land and 100%. It's probably only about 5 minutes, but it is the only section of the trip that feels like it drags even for that long. 100%, there's a really great boof right at the top here. And then after that, you're kind of just trying to keep it straight, keep some speed going through things. If you get flipped over in here, it is shallow. I know people have got bumped around. Another fantastic boof right down at the bottom of the rapid here. Here it is at 13 inches. It's basically the exact same line, that boof there. Looks like I got knocked around a little bit there. I think when the water is lower that the landing doesn't feel quite as smooth. But yeah, you're just going down through the rapid. The boof at the bottom is in at these levels too. This rapid's still great at 13 inches. There is this rock right after that boof. You can go either way around it, but you just want to be aware that it's there. Here it is at higher water going left around that rock. That boof up at the top of the rapid, you want to be pretty precise with your angle coming off that thing. If you're pointed too far to the right, it's pretty bumpy and you're right up against the rocks on the right shore. If you're pointed too far to the left, it actually isn't too bad. You just don't want to run into that rock on the left, but it doesn't feel quite as bumpy as being pointed too far to the right. There's a really fun eddy catch in this rapid right after that boof at the top. I saw Roy and Jackson doing this one the other day. It's pretty tricky to get in that eddy. The first time I went for it, I just kind of came into that boof like I usually do with lots of momentum, and I just had too much speed. I tried to get in that eddy, but I just kind of stuck my nose in there and got spun out backwards and didn't make it in at all. And Kyle told me that he's coming into that eddy. He likes to come into that booth real slow. So I tried that the next time, and it went a lot better. That's worked out for me a couple times, so that feels like the way to do it. I guess there's an easier way to catch that eddy by cutting in under the boof instead of hitting the boof, but that boof might be my favorite move on the river, so I'd rather not give it up if I don't have to. After 100%, there's a couple fun moves, nothing too tricky. Kind of mellows out a bit. You'll pass what looks like a diversion dam on the river right, and then you'll see the park where you left your car in this cove on river right. And that's Meadow Camp.